Welcome to Life Activated. I'm Mari Roberts, corporate gal gone rad energy healer and psychic guide. The intention of this podcast is to be a supportive space that empowers you to live your passions now, encouraging you to be uniquely you and to trust your intuition. On this podcast, you're going to hear from guests who are just like you. The difference is they figured out how to bring their passions into their life. To find out more, please visit me at marirobertslife.com. Oh my goodness. Hello. Welcome back to Life Activated. I am so excited about today's podcast guest. You just are going to be, oh my goodness, just so blown away by this person today. I have someone who I've known for quite some time, actually. I've known this person since they were an intern when I used to be a recruiting coordinator 1,000 years ago. I'm welcoming the wonderful, talented, beautiful, smart, brilliant Megan Hyman to the show. Welcome, Megan. Hello.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to hand it off to you, like always, and have you go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself. The audience will look for a little bit of the woo, so just give us your astro sign. If you have your human design or anything like that, it's okay. If you don't, no worries. We'll find out about it for you later. I'll tell you what it is.
Great. Thank you. So thank you again so much for having me here today. My name's Megan Hyman. I am the CEO of a community foundation based in Dallas, Texas. And a little bit about me, I was born in Southern California, the Mojave Desert, a tiny little military Navy-based town called Ridgecrest, California. And I am a Gemini, born June 20th. That's literally all I know about my astrological sign. However, my family, we lived in Southern California for many years, transitioned to the Midwest. So I really consider myself to be a Midwestern gal. My family moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Right before I started high school, I went to high school and college in Indiana. And then, as Mari mentioned, I was fortunate enough to have a summer internship with a financial institution based in Chicago. And I started as an intern in the private bank for that organization. I ended up just falling in love with it. I went to school, I studied marketing and psychology, and originally wanted to go into family therapy and become a counselor for my professional endeavor. And then I realized, as a first generation college student who is paying my own bills and my own way through school and taking on debt, that I needed to get a job because it was going to be pretty expensive to try and pursue a medical degree or some sort of post-bachelor education to achieve those goals. So I sought out a summer internship, and then that kind of changed my path completely. I just fell in love with the world of private banking. It felt like the perfect marriage between being able to use my analytical skill set while also connecting with families and dealing with a lot of interpersonal dynamics, because one of the most sensitive things for people, one of the most intimate ways to connect with people is handling their personal finances. So much to my surprise, I ended up being at that bank for 16 years. I worked for the bank in Chicago, transferred to New York, moved to Texas, back to New York during the pandemic. And when the pandemic started, I really took an opportunity to kind of say, okay, it's been more than 15 years. Maybe I need to check in with myself and decide, like, is this still what I want to be doing with my life? And through my professional career, had built some really close relationships within the community in Texas and had a lot of personal advisors, mentors, friends. And I was just sort of really open and vulnerable with these people and saying, here's what I love to do. I wish that I could spend like all of my time helping people figure out what they're going to do with their charitable giving and kind of aligning people's values with opportunities to make an impact. And an organization that I had volunteered with for 5 years was going through a leadership transition. They reached out to me and said, "Hey, we've heard through the grapevine that you may be interested in leaving the bank. Would you be interested in putting your hat in the ring for this role?" One thing led to another. 7 months later, I received an offer. And so just less than 2 months ago, started in my role as chief executive for a community foundation in Dallas.
That is amazing. Oh my goodness. First and foremost, I literally had no idea that you were a marketing and psychology major.
Mhm.
I had no idea. That's so wild. I
Well, it's
never knew that.
funny because like all of my friends are in the business school at Indiana, which was like a very, reputable business school, everyone was going into investment banking, and when I got a job at this financial institution, they were like, "Wait, what?" Like it was a total Elle Woods moment for me. Like I was like, "What? Like it's hard?" Like of course I'm going to work there. And it was 2008 when I graduated, and a lot of my friends were finding themselves in a really uncomfortable position of having to look for a job. And so there was no small amount of like personal insecurity, I think, on my part of like, how did I land in this position? Like, why me? So I was very grateful for that opportunity and this chance to kind of come at a role from a non-traditional background from an education standpoint.
I knew you then, and you were a badass. So I'm just gonna say that, like, I knew you and you were fearless. And what was really interesting, or what is really interesting for me, hearing your background and connecting, a thread around your passion with, your degree and the work you were doing, is I'd never really thought about the piece of supporting people and families in this vulnerable place in terms of, having conversations around money and that being a vulnerable thing, and you having that background in, psychology and being able to connect in a human way. And now it makes so much sense as to why you were so wildly successful in the work that you were doing. Like seriously, that makes so much sense because you have that passion in you. Again, I'm having like these flashbacks, like you could see people in a deeper way beyond just like, you weren't geeking out just about numbers, you were geeking out about people and their emotions, and then going to the numbers.
Yeah. And that's really important, I think, in any career, is to try and like see the human in the moment versus the profession. And throughout my time at the bank, I had an opportunity to be in the commercial bank too. And that was very different, like dealing with people's business versus their personal affairs. But I learned so many valuable things from that time in the private bank. How do you like find common values? How do you find points of connection and relationship? Because people are going to do business with someone that they like and they feel like listen to them and wants to understand and find unification, I guess, in whatever it is, because just about every industry is kind of commoditized. Like there's going to be so many other providers of whatever good or service you are putting out in the market. So the only differentiation that you can drive, at least in my own experience, is who you are. And so being authentic to myself and saying, okay, what are the things that I know I'm really good at or that I really can be genuinely enthusiastic about? And how do I spend more of my time doing that versus trying to force a square peg into a round hole and be something that I'm not? Because you can just see that immediately if someone's not authentic.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is something that is really important to call out, and that so many of us lose sight of, especially as we get older, is how do we go into our corporate worlds and even into our businesses being authentically who we are, and showing up as, Megan, Mari, or whoever we are in a real way. So I love that you highlight that right away. How did you bring yourself into this space to build connections with clients? And again, you're talking private banking. So you're talking like big money. We used to talk about it from, there's the person who owns the 40 Taco Bells to the Oprahs, just different amount of zeros behind their their dollars in the bank. So it's pretty wild.
But that's and that's an interesting point, because I think a lot of people feel intimidated by that. I mean, I'm coming from a background where I was the first person in my family to go to school. A lot of my family members have very, blue collar, like average lives. And so do I, by the way. Like, my life is pretty normal, but we all have common points of fears, hopes, dreams, and like being able to kind of cut through this like numbers on a page and figuring out like, okay, we all like want our loved ones to feel secure and confident and ready to take on, whatever is going to be coming their way throughout their lives. So when you connect with people about their children, their grandchildren, their pets, their siblings, their parents, like finding those like common human experience things, it may look and feel a little different for Oprah than it does for me, but the underlying elements are the same.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And this is a good segue to the thing that I forgot to do, which is I pulled a card for us.
Great.
And funny enough, I didn't read the card yet, but the card that I pulled, no joke, is roots.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny because we were just talking and you were talking about people's backgrounds, people's roots.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to just really quickly see what the message is and how this might kind of relate to the rest of our conversation, or just like what the theme may be, or how it might pull through the rest of today.
Okay.
So let's just see for a second here. So I just heard your roots run deep and wide. You are a leader by being you, by showing the way. Oh, I'm getting a little emotional. Like you're like a way shower, a light shower for your family. I'm getting a little emotional. So like by you doing everything that you do, the way that you do it, you actually are like a light shower for your family for generations to come. And to hold on to that. And while this is like something to not take lightly, to not let it weigh you down either. And to allow it to be something that you, how do I want to say this? Like, allow it to be a joyful thing as well, And so, like, even just you saying, like, your story of going to college and, you've done something so big, right? You've have had this amazing career, and we're going to talk about you just talked about your transition, right? Everything you're doing, like you are showing this way it's for your family. It's the generational, it's the roots, it's the generational, how do I want to say it? It's like the ripples for the generations to come. Like you're the light.
There's a couple of thoughts that go through my head as you were talking, and this concept of roots, and maybe I'll start on the personal side and then how I see that relevant to the professional world. So I had my second child, my daughter, in November of 2019. And my first day back from maternity leave was Friday, March 13th of 2020. And it was the worst day for financial markets since 1989. I was born in 1986. So the worst market cycles of my entire generation, even having like come of age in financial services in 2008. So it was really intense. And couple that with like the societal change and everything that was going on during that time frame, socially, politically, health-wise, like it was just a season of tremendous change. And we made a decision as a family literally a week later that we were going to leave Dallas, and go to Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is where my husband grew up and where his parents still live today. And we were going to take our kids and just like go there until the end of the pandemic. And I thought that was going to be like a month or two. And we ended up living with them for 13 months. And I joked that we were COVID refugees. Like we just like packed 2 weeks worth of clothes, cleaned out our refrigerator, and just booked it out of Dallas. And with that came this really intense season of feeling deeply unrooted, having no like home of my own, trying to, bring two toddlers into the world and in an age where you can't even leave your house, and having no friends and no social network, and like nothing was consistent or stable feeling. And that was such an uncomfortable and difficult season of life. And I know everyone who was alive during that period, like we all lived through that. But
Yeah.
selfishly, in my own self-centered view, it felt like a double whammy. Like I was like, and then, I ended up shifting careers and leaving the private bank and moving into the commercial bank and a new geography and doing all of these things professionally. And it just felt so unrooted. And I found myself kind of turning inward and trying to find sources of relief, whether it was like through comedy or physical exercise or just trying to recognize when I was feeling tapped out, which felt like all the time, but
Yeah.
it was just a crazy experience of feeling deeply unrooted, but still trying to be this leader for my family and figuring out, okay, like how am I going to move my career forward so that I can continue to support my kids and my husband and my broader family and provide for them. So that was really a very different, I guess, take on the roots card. Um,
Yeah.
and then I touched on this professional change that also happened, but a big part of why this opportunity to come back to Texas, even though we have no family there and have some differing views, maybe on the cultural front that the stereotypical person from that geography may not hold. It was not an easy decision. And I had to kind of be ruthlessly honest with myself about how hard am I going to push on my family to kind of get on board with this change? What are the real pros and cons? Like, is all of this disruption, uprooting, again, going to be worth it? And for me, it was twofold. One, this was an opportunity to take my career and connect it so much more deeply with what I love, which is being a part of a community, contributing and giving back, finding ways to help others connect with their passion, and being a leader in the community of how do you innovate around charitable giving. And it's still, I mean, what we do is like manage money for charitable institutions and for philanthropic donors. So it's still like relevant to what I was doing before, but now instead of having to do like all the other stuff that I wasn't so crazy about, I get to just focus in and zero in on what I love, which is connecting with people who want to help others and try to make the world a better place than it was when we found it. But knowing that I was going to take this professional risk was daunting. And it definitely brought out insecurities and this feeling of imposter syndrome and how am I going to redefine myself in a marketplace that I just disappeared from 3 years ago with like no goodbye or closure. Like it was just, we just evaporated into thin air. And when I was going through the interview process, like I was thinking about it and looking through the board of directors that I would be reporting to and so many of the community stakeholders who were involved, they're all like former clients of mine, friends of mine, people that I have had the benefit of their mentorship and guidance from. And that just like made it so clear in my mind, like, this is really where I'm meant to like try this new chapter. Like if I'm going to do this, like this is the most supportive, positive environment to try something new at, where a lot of the hurdle of like introducing yourself to a new community and trying to define your value to the marketplace and all of those things, I didn't have to have that year-long ramp-up period or more of like, okay, what's that person's name again? And how are they connected to this? Like all of that was sort of that groundwork was laid. So it feels good to be reestablishing roots in a place that I was before and sort of growing and the whole analogy of like roots and trees and growth is like a very apt one for a community foundation because there's a concept in Judaism, which is about planting trees whose shade you never intend to sit under. So
Mm.
basically planting the seeds of growth financially or otherwise so that future generations can benefit from what the work that you're doing today. And that really meant a lot to me personally.
I love that. I love that. All right, I'm popping right in here really quick to share a little bit with you about the free resource that is available to you. So every season with the Life Activated podcast, I am going to be offering you a free resource. And the intention of this free resource is really to help enhance the theme of the season and to continue to enhance really the intention of the podcast, which is to empower you to live your passions and encouraging you to be uniquely you and to trust your intuition. So the first season's free resource is a meditation, and the theme of this meditation is reflection. And I have in there, in this reflection meditation, also a little bit on intention as well. You can grab this meditation simply by going to the show notes and downloading it. And just know that every season, there will be something great for you to look forward to. So go now, or as soon as this show is over, this particular episode is over, and grab your resource. I hope you love it. Send me a note. Let me know how it works for you, how it's supporting you as well. I want to hear from you. All right, back to the show. There's so many things to unpack there. So one thing I just want to say about sort of roots and what you were saying about the job piece is, and sort of like that vision, I just want to also call out is, and it's super funny because I did a reading not that long ago that I feel like is really connected to this. Roots don't always disconnect, right? Like just because you may not see the root for a while doesn't mean that the root's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can reconnect to that root or to those roots.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even in your sharing of that, you saw that quickly. Those roots are there. Those seeds are planted. And so I hope anyone who's hearing this understands that community and opportunities can be in sometimes unlikely places. And sometimes it's just a matter of peeling back some of the layers to see, and following the crumbs and witnessing that. And then the other piece that I think is really interesting is even in feeling ungrounded, you can still be rooted. So even in all the wildness that was happening with the move and everything, you can still be grounded.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. Right. Because there was a lot that was happening, but even in the midst of that sort of chaos,
Mm-hmm.
you were still standing.
Well, and I think, sometimes there's this desire to have a reason or a purpose to understand like why things are happening to you or like what is going, like why me sort of thing. It's very tempting to fall into that line of thought of like, oh, why do bad things happen to good people? Or like, what is, and like in my mind, like the least helpful advice is like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. Like I hate that saying because I feel like it's really unfair to people who deal with things that really just have no reason and are like catastrophic or fundamentally devastating to that person. Like that's not a helpful word of advice. So please don't say that to me. But I do feel like when I look back, there's things that may not have like made sense in the moment that proved to be very, very valuable in this desire to stay grounded, even in
Mm-hmm.
that brooding environment. A relationship, a friendship, like even our relationship. We've had periods of time where we talk a lot because we were coworkers and you were like directly responsible for my success at work and ability to get a job. So thank you. But like we went many years not talking and then like reconnected in moments. And so I just have such a deeper appreciation for like the power of just staying in relationships that you just don't know where it's going to go. Right.
Yeah.
And so being mindful of how you treat people, how you leave a situation is just as important as how you begin it, if not more so, because the last impression is often a lasting impression. So how do we find ways to kind of be gracious and grateful about things that happen, even if in that moment it felt devastating or insurmountable or just plain shitty. Like
Yeah.
you just sometimes things happen and you're like, gosh, that was just a really bad day, conversation, experience, whatever. And then like trying to find a perspective of gratitude about it and just be like, oh, I'm so thankful that I'm still standing today and that happened and now it's over. And tomorrow, we'll try again kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
that to me has just been a really helpful tool, whether it's in a personal situation or a professional one, to try and keep a positive outlook while not being Pollyanna. Like I don't want to just be like happy for this, like no reason. But at the same time, it's like you can learn something from a difficult situation too.
Always. There's so much to learn in a difficult situation. Okay, I want to ask you a question about passions in
Mhm.
general, because we know about your passion around community, connecting community, people, but I know that you have some, I'll call them micro passions, taking that from the interview with Amanda Chase that we had. Would you mind sharing about a couple of your micro passions?
Sure. So I feel like one way that I've been able to just stay relatively sane. My husband would probably have a different definition as to the status of my overall mental condition on any given day, is really based in like humor and trying to observe things about the world around me that just make me laugh. And it's one of like my favorite comedians are those that don't have to put someone down in order to make other people laugh. And I think like Seinfeld is a genius at that, like finding something about a common experience that just like he notices it and elevates it and takes it to a place where it's so intellectual and like comedic for that reason. And so, not that this is like an intellectual comedic purpose, but I noticed a very common thing in Dallas was that people like spend money on these vanity license plates. And I just think it's hysterical, like what people choose to basically wear around town, like a brand about who they are, or some statement about their vehicle or about their profession or about life in general. And so I started an Instagram account called Vanity Plate, and it's a hashtag Vanity Plates of Dallas, where I just would see them. Like it's one of those things where it's like once you see it,
You
all of a
can't
sudden you
unsee it.
can't not see it. Yeah. And they were just everywhere. And the best part about it is that like so many people have connected with me over this. Like they'll send me pictures. I literally like once a week, maybe, like I'll get a note from someone that I haven't talked to in years to say, oh my gosh, I saw this and made me think of you. And I just love that. I get such a big kick out of it. And then even like, especially throughout the pandemic, I felt like the memes and the funny videos and the creativity of people around the world of like expressing their own just funny things that happen or like a response that was just really relatable. And so on my personal account, I also like just feel like when things are particularly heavy or difficult or confusing or challenging, the internet gods like just send me the best content. And so maybe that's, I don't know what that says about the universe, but it has sustained me throughout a period where I really didn't have a lot of like in-person friendships and relationships, and maybe
Yeah.
other people felt the same way. And so I really related to them on my social media. Another thing, I was quoted in the Wall Street Journal for the first time. And I'm sure that you would be very impressed by this as a recruiter for a financial institution, that it was
Yes.
actually in the style section, having
Yes.
nothing
Yes.
to do with my, investment expertise, which was pretty on brand for me. That's fun. Because one of my girlfriends in Dallas started a company called Wildlike, and her vision for this company was that people who were maybe of a stereotype that was branded more conservative would like to have a higher end option for getting like your ears pierced or a nose piercing or some sort of, decorative.
Piercing.
Thank you, piercing. Like this is all suitable for work, like nothing, nothing,
Yeah.
no like
Yeah.
secret piercings that I can't tell you about because my
Yeah.
mom find out. So I have gotten several ear piercings from her. And the first one that I got, my son was like 6 months old. He's now 5. And when I came home, my husband was like, oh my God, are you in crisis? Like, are you having a crisis because you've just got your ears pierced? And she and I just thought that was like the funniest thing, because it was like, okay, if this is my crisis, like I'm not out here like having an affair or like buying a Porsche or something. Like this is,
You're
if this
getting your ear pierced. Yeah.
is my crisis. So now it's sort of become like whenever there's a personal achievement or something that I like want to celebrate, I hop into her little store in Highland Park, Dallas, and treat myself.
I
So
love it. I love
yeah,
it.
and kind
We'll
of,
make sure to include a link to her shop too,
oh,
in the show
cool. Yeah,
notes.
it's
Yeah.
really neat. And she
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So
Because you can buy her earring. Can you buy her earrings
you can
online?
buy the
Yeah.
earrings online. And then if you're in Dallas, you can stop in.
Okay, we'll definitely make the show notes because I've seen, now I follow them, of course. So I've seen the jewelry is really cute. So I have another question for you as we're getting close to wrapping up. Two things actually. One is, when you lost sight of sort of your passion, and I know you talked about that a little bit. You really kind of came to life really during that pandemic. How did you reconnect to it?
Just such a good question. I think it was really just about trying to be authentic with myself. Like there's a really awesome quote from the Ted Lasso show, which if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend.
Yeah.
But he says, why don't you check in with your gut, and on your way to your gut, check in with your heart? And I love that quote because it really is so true. Like this connection between your gut and your brain and your heart, and just trying to make the right decision can feel really overwhelming when you have a family to consider, or really at any point in time. Is like, nobody wants to make the wrong decision. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to not mess it up. So I tried to do a couple of things. One, I read a couple of books about gratitude and the role that gratitude and feeling grateful and finding even like very mundane things to be grateful for,
Yes.
how that just broadens your awareness of the many blessings that we all have in our
Yes.
lives. So that drove major change for me. Like just trying to start every morning before I look at my phone or get out of bed to just think of like two things that I'm really grateful for. And through repetition, there were some themes that came out of that practice of gratitude of what are the things that I really love? And I know I said this earlier, but like, how do I spend more of my time doing the things that I really love and less of the time doing the things that just drive me crazy? And there's elements to every job that are less, savory. But
Yes.
this was really huge for me, the gratitude practice. And then also just asking for advice from friends and from family. But at the tricky, slippery slope with that is that everyone's going to have an opinion. And
Yes.
ultimately, you're the one that has to live with the ramifications of your choice. And so you
Yes.
can't live your life trying to follow other people's advice. And I think as women, we sort of come from that place of, I wish someone would tell me what to do sometimes.
Yes.
And there's no rule book, there's no guidebook. And I was at my kids' school a couple of weeks ago and I was meeting with the 7th and 8th graders and they were like, how did you know that they had such awesome questions, by the way, about what is a community foundation and how does it work? And they were like, well, how did you know that it was time to leave your banking job and like try this new job? And I'm sure there's a lot of parents now who are upset with me, but I was like, guys, no adult, like, there's no like lesson plan for adulthood. Like, we all have no clue what we're doing. And we are just trying to make the best decision we can with the information that's available to us at that time. And just try to give yourself the grace that if you try something and it doesn't work out, then try something else or try it again a different way. And giving ourselves the permission to try something and not be great at it the first time was a major breakthrough for me, because I had major perfection issues of like, well, if I do it and I'm not immediately successful, then I'm a failure. And that's just
Not
not
true. I
so.
love that. I love everything you're saying right now because so many people need to hear literally everything you just said. Because one, yes, the gratitude piece is so big. And two, there is no guidebook. And we have to sometimes just take a step. And the
Mhm.
other piece that I really love that you said is, especially as women, we do ask for so much input and we want to make everyone happy at the cost of ourselves.
Yeah.
And it is so important that we remember that sometimes we're going to have to get selfish and we're going to have to be okay with other people not being okay and
Yeah.
listening to our hearts. Because when we listen to our hearts, that's also where the truth lies. And going back to that card pull, right? Like to be the way shower, to be the way shower, we have to listen to our hearts.
Mhm.
That is the only way.
Mhm.
I've learned that people they'll come on board. And if they don't come on board, then they're probably weren't going to ever support you anyway. Right?
Exactly.
And that's not
Exactly.
someone you
People
want in
who
your
are
life.
really invested in you are going to be invested through the cycles, not to
Yes,
pull from my investment background, but
it's
this is
true.
not what's the saying? Buy low, sell high, but like the opposite. Like
Yeah.
people who are invested with you in your low moments are going to be there times 10 in your high moments. And so if they weren't willing to stick with you through the cycles, then it wasn't a good investor anyway. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, I lied. Two more questions. I lied. I lied. Sorry. With all that was going on and has been going on and kind of getting you to where you are, how did you trust your guidance?
I would say that's still a work in progress. I
That's
think
fair.
it's one of those things that like I've learned through the past couple of years that certainty is just not a realistic thing in my life right now. And so just trying to do the best I can with whatever information I have, whether that's guidance or intuition or gut or whatever, and giving myself permission to change course if I need to. And I have just found in my own experience, like trying to plan even a year from now is just really hard. And I'm just setting myself up for disappointment. So I'm just really trying to, and I am not historically very good at this, give myself grace and say, it's okay. If this doesn't work out, it's okay.
Yeah.
The right thing will come.
Yes. Yes. I'm high-fiving you right now. Air high five. Yes. I love it. This is, I promise, the last question. This is something that I struggle with and that I know that a lot of women struggle with. How do you celebrate yourself?
Okay, good question. Also a struggle for me. I had a mentor early in my career who was a very difficult woman in many ways to work with, but she also was very instrumental in helping me seek out and use my voice and to have an opinion and to state my opinion and be willing to listen to other points of view, but to also stick up for myself and assert myself. And that's proven to be really helpful. So, how do I celebrate myself? One, I think not being afraid to toot your own horn is a great skill to learn. And I would encourage every young professional, male or female, to find a tactful way that's not obnoxious, but to make sure that your stakeholders, whether it's your boss, whether it's your family, your partner, your friends, like hear and know about whatever it is that you're doing. So communication is one way that I celebrate myself, is just to say, okay, I did something and I'm really proud of it. And this is why. And I probably have a undiagnosed online shopping addiction. And so I am not afraid to treat myself. I'm like, oh, I had a great day. I totally deserve this. Click purchase. Yeah, it's a little, what is it? Retail therapy is one way that I celebrate myself.
That's okay. That's good. Retail therapy. Love it.
It's so healthy for the bottom line in my household. But yeah, that's another way.
I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. Ah, Megan, thank you for being here, for sharing your story, for sharing how you have reconnected to your passion, how you have woven your passion throughout, for really just being, vulnerable around even how you've felt connected and disconnected to your roots. And I know that anyone who listens to this is going to definitely be inspired. And I know that you are a way shower for not only your family and your community, but for someone who's hearing this today who needed this message. So thank you so much for being here. How can people find you? What would you like people to take action on or take away from today?
Sure. So, if there was anything that I would love to encourage folks to learn more about is, so in my new job, I'm the chief executive officer of a community foundation in Dallas. Community foundations are, by definition, meant to support a specific geography or a demographic of people. It could be religious, it could be race, it could be just about any way to define community. There is likely a community foundation that is trying to do good work to support their respective constituents. And so I would love to encourage you to search and find your local community foundation and just learn more about what we do as an industry. We can help people with charitable interests connect to causes either financially to support an organization or through volunteer work or just general support and awareness. I think would be a really awesome takeaway for each of you listening to this today. You can find me online if you have a twisted sense of humor. On Instagram, I am at Meg Arts, which is spelled Megart as in Tom, Z as in zebra. And then I also have the Vanity Plates Instagram account. It's a bit of an unusual spelling, so
I'll link it.
But it's like at Vanity Plates.
And I'll link it. I'll link it.
Cool.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for being here. I
Thank
just
you.
so appreciate you.
Likewise.
Awesome.
Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Until next time, everyone. That is it for this episode of the Life Activated podcast. I hope that you enjoyed this episode today with Megan. She was a true delight. I hope that you also connected with the message and image of roots and how we all create roots and we all have opportunities to be way showers in our own families and in our own communities. With that, I also want to let you know that I have a free gift for you that you can download right away. It's in the show notes. It is a meditation that is for you. It is all about reflection. It's for this season. It is here to support you, not only in reflecting on where you are and where you have come in this season in your life. It is also to support you in setting your intentions for moving forward. You can use this free gift at any time that you need, not only right now in this current season. So feel free, download it now. Okay, until next time.